Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. While we wait for the rest of the participants for today's knowledge sharing event, kindly look at your screen for some reminders for the webinar. Thank you.
You want to get started, Ever?
All right. Okay, so while we wait for them to come in, we'd like to officially open the discussion. So again, thank you everyone for coming in today for attending the South-South Knowledge Sharing on Air Quality and Carbon Neutrality Regional Knowledge Sharing event on agricultural burning, sectoral to regional impacts and solutions. I'm Everlyn Tamayo. I'm the Air Quality and Climate Change Science Lead of Cleaner Asia, and I will be your host moderator for today. We are very glad to welcome you all today to a wonderful learning experience with our esteemed colleagues working on addressing open burning from the agricultural sector with the overall goal of improving air quality and mitigating climate change. To officially open the session, let's welcome to the virtual podium Mr. Qingfeng Zhang, Chief of the Rural Development and Food Security Agriculture Thematic Group of the Asian Development Bank. He is also going to share a bit on the South-South Knowledge Sharing on Air Quality and Carbon Neutrality project that is being implemented by Cleaner Asia on behalf of the ADB. Afterwards, Mr. Qingfeng will introduce ADB Executive Director Noor Ahmed for his opening speech. Let us all welcome Mr. Zhang on the floor.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to extend my warm welcome to all of our participants to this very important knowledge sharing event on the agricultural burning, sectoral to regional impacts and also solutions. The issue of the air pollution is one of the most significant environmental, health, and social challenges that we are facing. Globally, every year, there are about 7 million premature deaths caused by air pollution. Of this, more than 4 million deaths are due to the health problems such as respiratory disease caused by the long-term exposure to fine particulate matter PM2.5, which is also one of the most common and also the healthiest air pollutants in developing countries. Agricultural residue burning is one of the common practices in many of the countries in Asia and also Pacific. It has drawn attention of the policymakers and also the public because of the severe air pollution of this seasonal heat that it creates across provincial and national borders already. This is not only just result in a very severe health and economic impact, but also contribute to the climate change. Where in the Asian Development Bank, we are committed to support our DMCs to deliver the long-term sustainable improvements in air quality management. We have been doing so through the technical assistance programs, investment programs, including like the Beijing-Tianjin-Hebei air pollution programs, and also the Mongolia Ulaanbaatar air quality programs through the policy-based lending, FIs, result-based lending, and also the policy loans. In September 2022, we launched a new air quality program. I call it the Asia Clear Blue Sky program. The main objective of this program is to scale up investments for reducing air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions in energy, transport, urban, and agricultural sector. In addition to scale up the investment, we allow planning to organize the several capacity building and knowledge sharing activities under this program. Today's event, we are focused on air pollution caused by the agricultural waste burning, which is one of the key activities under the overall knowledge sharing program. Air pollution caused by the agricultural waste burning now becomes one of the critical challenges we are facing today in Asia, particularly in South Asia, Southeast Asia, and also, of course, including the north part of the PRC. In the webinar today, we will learn about the ongoing initiatives being taken to address the problem, success stories, challenges, and also the further efforts needed. Through these discussions, we must work together to identify solutions that were technically, financially sound and scalable, and solutions that can be implemented through the support of the technical assistance project and the investment project, which is going to be financed by the ADB. I wish all of the speakers and the participants fruitful discussions and also very successful event. Now, my pleasure to invite the ADB Executive Director, Mr. Noor Ahmed, to deliver the opening speech for today's knowledge session. Noor is from the Pakistan and represents the governments of the Pakistan, Kazakhstan, Maldives, Marshall Islands, Mongolia, Pakistan, the Philippines, Timor-Leste of the ADB board members. I look forward to hearing from the Noor's insight on the air pollution caused by the agricultural waste burning. Noor is also our key champion for the food security and also environmental program. Floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Qingfeng, for your kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen and participants, very good afternoon from Manila, and very warm welcome to this seminar today. I think this is a very important discussion. I'm so happy to be part of this discussion today. I'm actually looking forward to discussion for quite long. But first, let me begin by thanking Qingfeng and Karma for organizing this discussion today, which I'm very hopeful is going to be very, very productive and going to transform into very concrete actions to address the challenge that several communities in South Asia and the Pacific are facing today. Let me also begin by introducing myself. I was born in a rural side in Pakistan, in Punjab, in an agriculturalist family, and then I was trained and educated as a civil servant and as a administrator, as a policy practitioner, ended up being secretary to the government of Pakistan. So I really have lived through this transition, what's going on the climate side and what's going on in the agriculture side. So you have to really bear with me if I refer very frequently to my own observation, experiences, and what I have seen through my lifetime. I think air and environmental pollution are very pressing issues in many parts of Asia today. And according to a recent report released by the World Bank, it's very alarming actually. 9 out of 10 cities most extensively polluted in the world are actually in South Asia. And that is something, the large population in those cities are kind of living a life that is very, very alarming and causing serious health problems, very frequent road accidents, people really struggling and leaving cities in winters to breathe fresh air. So this issue of air pollution is very, very serious in many parts in South Asia. During winter month, many cities even in Central Asia, like Bishkek, like Almaty, their air pollution level is very, very high. And people leave those cities a fresh air. But in Pakistan, if I go back to Pakistan, you see, according to this report, there is a life expectancy loss of 2.7 years, and the estimated economic and loss is almost 6% of the GDP. So the report also talks about the overall economic loss of 10% of the GDP in South Asia because of this environmental pollution and climate change issues. So I think we have a very important discussion today. I congratulate to all of you being part of discussion. I think it's not just discussion, it's passion, it's commitment we have to show to save our communities. Let me also share with you, as I said, I have lived through this story. There is a very close nexus and complex nexus between climate change, environmental pollution, and agriculture. These issues are actually intertwined and interdependent, and you really cannot address the one without the other. So if you think of the climate change, if you think of air environmental pollution, you have to really bring the agriculture to the center of the discussion. And similarly, if you are going to take care of the agriculture sector issues, no, agriculture is the worst hit sector on account of climate change and air pollution and environmental degradation. And you really have to start the discussion with air quality, soil quality, degradation, and the impact of climate change, which are taking place and which everybody can see. So I think this at the policy level, this is a big miss. We see climate change, environmental and degradation and pollution, and agriculture in a very distinct realms in boxes. So that is not a good thing. I think at the policy level, a lot more integration is needed and across these sectors. As many of you would know, South Asia is home to 2 billion people, and very large communities are actually poor. The number of people living in South Asia is the largest in any part of the region of the globe. So, and these communities are largely agriculture dependent and driven, not just 50% of the labor force is employed in the sector, but also their economies are primarily designed on the agricultural output, the industry, the services sector. So they all draw their basic resources from agriculture. So a single crop failure has devastating impacts economically and socially. And really, in my lifetime, I have seen agriculture productivity increasing, and that large incomes being transferred to the rural communities taking a huge social transformation in terms of education, in terms of living standards. So South Asia has gone through a tremendous transformation as a result of agriculture output increase and green revolution. But unfortunately, that is no more. The communities are really now, agriculture today is now really struggling. And agriculture is faced with a very complex set of challenges, predominantly the adverse impact unleashed by climate change and environmental pollution. For the last several years, many crops in Pakistan, in terms of their yield and productivity, are really struggling. Pakistan at one time was 4th largest cotton producing country in the world. But today it's no more. It only produced last year 5.5 million bales of cotton, and against the 15 million bales of cotton record that it hit in 2008. And this is a huge cost, which is caused by environmental pollution, which is caused by climate change, wheat, you name any other crop. So the yields and productivity are struggling. And as a result, rural communities are facing serious challenges. Their incomes are falling, poverty levels are increasing, and this stagnancy in agriculture sector and persistent low yields have a serious socioeconomic impacts in terms of living standard of those societies and communities, in terms of their education expenses, the money they can make available for their health and their education and their social needs. So, and the problem is fundamentally structural, something structurally taking place. As a result of low profitability and productivity, there is a large migration of capital and talent and labor that is taking place and moving into urban settings where they can have quicker returns and better returns, which offer them a very better living opportunities and livelihood opportunities. So there's a kind of a great drain that is taking place. And in many places, because of the recent crop failures in many places in South Asia, I know subsistence farmers are actually abandoning their farms, their lands, and moving into daily wages and into urban areas. So I think it's not just the agriculture that is under threat, it's the whole economies, the societies. It's something phenomenon that is going on that we need to improve our understanding very quickly and to come up with a set of solutions and policies and actions to reverse this phenomenon. Now let's talk about the climate change a little bit and the inner pollution and environmental degradation. Climate change and environmental degradation are at the heart of this declining agriculture sector productivity. Environmental pollution in Pakistan is the highest in many parts of the world, and Pakistan is rated as one of the most polluted countries in the world. As I earlier referred, 9 out of 10 cities are in South Asia. Lahore, major parts of Punjab, which are agricultural heartland. Visibility during winter month is very, very low. It's very polluted cities. It's fog, it's smog, it's very messy, and for many months and weeks, you don't have sunshine, you don't have sun, you have very weak, poor visibility. So that has a huge cost on the plant health, on human health overall. So the productivity goes down. People, in terms of their health costs, are so huge, and their life losses as well. So it's really very, very challenging in many places in Pakistan and South Asia. And now I understand, let me share with you also, while there are many sources of this air quality degradation, and one of the major contributors is agriculture sector. And I have seen in my lifetime the increased level of usage of fertilizers and pesticides and excessive intensive cropping patterns and burning of the agriculture residue, which is now causing a very serious problem. After paddy, in the beginning of the winter, there is a huge, large agriculture residue, which the farmers don't have any economic choices other than to burn, because they are under serious, tremendous pressure for the next crop, which is wheat, and which is only a weeks away. And so, and the farmers are low on incomes, so they can't buy expensive machineries and have a proper disposal. So that is the only economical way for them to burn the residue and be very. So as a result of agriculture burning, in the beginning of winter season, large areas of Pakistan and India come under a thick cloud of smog. About 20% of air pollution today is actually caused by burning of agriculture crop residue. A nexus haze descends upon major cities in Punjab and including Lahore and lasts for weeks and months. The onset of climate change and the rapidly increasing environmental inequality, pollution, and persistent climate plant health and crop productivity is a living story that I am seeing in my lifetime. I still remember during my school days when a thin, hazy line would appear in the horizon a little earlier before sunrise, but will then disappear within minutes. So, but then later I seen in my lifetime that little small line growing bigger and thicker and lasting longer. And finally now for the last several 10, 20, 15 years, that is a big haze, that is a big fog, and that is a smog that runs into hundreds and hundreds of miles in South Asia and lasts for many, many months and weeks and had a huge cost on the societies and economies and the crops. And this is probably one of the impact of the modernization of the agriculture sector. I still recall in my life when I was a boy, farmer would store the residue of the paddy, so they would use that as a fodder, animal fodder, during winter by mixing this this dry fodder with green fodder, because during winter, severe winter season, green fodder becomes scarce. So that was a very economical, very sustainable use and disposal of agriculture waste residue. But because of the intensity of the cropping and the pressure to grow more and more to get into the next cropping cycle quickly, that is now no more an option. So that's why farmers have no option but to work. So I think I think I'm taking more time than I'm allocated, but these are, I think, themes very close to my heart, and that's why I understand, I appreciate this discussion taking place today. I think we can keep on talking and talking, but I think solutions are needed and needed urgently. I think this discussion today is very important. Knowledge sharing, learning from the success stories, bringing in knowledge and new insights is very important to provide optimal solutions. So I look forward to a very productive discussion today. And I wish you all of you very well. Thank you so much, Shakti. Over to you, please.
Back to you, Amy. Thank you so much, Noor. Your guidance, we are taking note, and we definitely going to committed to improve the quality program in region, and also the addressing the agricultural bullying is one of the key measures we're going to adopt it. Over back to you, Amy.
Thank you very much, Noor, for that wonderful opening message. Indeed, it is imperative that we act on agricultural burning as one of the key steps in addressing air pollution and climate change, since, as you've said, they're very much intertwined. And we thank you also as well for affirming ADB's support in taking action on these very crucial issues. Thank you, Noor. And for us, before we continue with the wonderful presentations we have lined up for today, I'm just going to give you an overview of what you can expect And here in the slide, it's just showing you in here in the screen the objectives that we will face, because we already have heard about why it's important to address agricultural open burning, that it affects environment, health, and economics as well, and that we need sustainable solutions, which is why in this knowledge sharing event, what we aim to do is to discuss this with all of you stakeholders as well and our esteemed experts, so that we can discuss effective solutions on addressing the issue and the needs and considerations to ensure success and sustainability of the solutions. We have a very good lineup of speakers, and we will introduce them one by one, and we will actually start off with Dr. Tanmoy. So here, what you would expect from his discussion is that he will be giving an overview of the statistics on the extent, rate, and impacts of agricultural burning in Asian countries. Dr. Tanmoy plays a key role in developing, implementing, and reviewing air quality activities and projects of Cleaner Asia in India, and has vast working experience in atmospheric chemistry and air quality. Dr. Tanmoy, the webinar focus is yours.
Thank you, Everlyn, for this introduction, and I like to quickly share my screen. Okay, is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. So, hello everyone. I'm Dr. Tanmoy Mukherjee, working as an air quality specialist at the Clean Air Asia, and today I've been given a job to deliver a discussion about an overview of the statistics on the extent, rate, and impacts of agricultural burning in the Asian countries. So I would like to start by showing you how the agricultural crop burning looks like. So I'll give you a moment with this picture. It's general pictures taken from the internet, how the agricultural crop burning looks like actually. And then we will move to the next one. So even looking at this picture, you can see how much pollution is actually happening from this agricultural field while we are burning the stalks. Now, let us start with the discussion. And what is agricultural burning? As we know that agricultural burning is an intentional use of fire for vegetation management in the agricultural fields, orchards, drilling, rangelands, and forest. And what happened while we burn agricultural crop residues? It actually emits gases. Can you give me a second? Yeah. So what happened actually? It emits greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, N2O, methane, pollutants like carbon monoxide, ammonia, NOx, SO2, and volatile organic compounds. But it also emits particulate matter, black carbons. So what happened is it actually increases the threefold greater risk of acute respiratory actions. So let's move to the next slide. I don't know. Okay. Sorry. So the overview and the objective of this talk is to understand the extent and impact of agricultural burning in the Asian countries. So let us start by having a look at the satellite view of the biomass burning. These red dots, as you can see in this picture, these are actually the burning spots detected by satellites. These are satellite pictures taken from MODIS, NASA launched satellite Terra and Aqua. The sensor is MODIS. And as you can see, the date, the left side date is somewhat in the, it is during March, while the right side picture, the right panel picture, it is in October. So as you can see, overall, the Asian continent is experiencing the agricultural burning, crop residue burning, and the pollution because of it. throughout the year. It's not like a season to season, as we can say, we'll see in the future slides that every country has its own period of burning, crop residue burning. However, as an overall continent, the Asian continent actually experiences crop residue burning throughout the year. Now let us come into the driver. What are the drivers? So as you can see from this driver, but as per India perspective, what I can share that there was a very limited period between paddy harvest and wheat sowing during the October-November period. So what happened? As the combined harvester and farm machinizations were there, it leaves a long, means the height of the straws are very high. The height of the straws are very high. That's why the farmers do not have the time to cut the straw. So they used to burn the straw. And because of their financial constraint, their resources, their labor scarcity, this crop residue burning happens every October-November period in the northern Western India. However, I do believe that in the other countries also, these the factors works equally. So these are the major drivers of crop residue burning over the Asian countries. Now let us come to the country-wise how the crop residue burning is happening. So as you can see, let me just show you, describe these two pictures first. In the right panel, as you can see, aerosol optical depth, which is again a indicator of pollution load. This data is from 2001 to 2015, 2016. You can see it is continuously increasing at a rate of 3.2% per year. The aerosol loading, and this data is for October-November month. So, and the fire count, the amount of fires, the data is taken from satellite, and the fire count is also increasing at a rate of 25% per year. What does that signifies? That with the time enhances, the agricultural burning increases continuously over the Indian subcontinent. And it's not only about India, it is same about Pakistan also, which we'll see later. So crop residue burning therefore the crop residue burning become a recurring problem in mostly in the Punjab, Haryana, when the Western Uttar Pradesh during October-November period. And it's actually rice straw, which I told you earlier that the rice straw and due to the time limitation between rice straw harvesting and the paddy sowing, it's mostly the rice straw. 40% of the total residue burned is rice straw, and the sugarcane also, the straw of sugarcane also burned, but it was a bit less. So estimated the annual economic cost of exposure to the air pollution estimated is around $30 billion. While the reduction of yield due to nutrient loss because of this burning is around 500 crore per year. So as you can see that not only health, but also economy is directly impacted because of this crop residue burn. Coming to China, what we can see is the regions are eastern, northern plain, northeastern, and the southern region. Everywhere you can see almost. While the northern plain is actually mostly impacted by, and the 40% of total emission, it is 47% of total emission is actually coming from crop residue burning in the northern China plain. The two distinct peaks can be seen during June and October, and a smaller peak during April. And it's almost contained agricultural fires contributed more than 84% to the total emission in the summer in the northern China plain. And again, in terms of estimation, that approximately 1.3 million premature mortalities in China, of which estimated 300,000 were due to the emissions from agricultural sector. So as you can see, health-wise, it is very, very harmful, and it impact hardly to the residents. Now coming to Philippines. Philippines, what we can see, it's actually burned more than 649.65 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, and among which more than 76% is rice straw, and means in all rice forms you can see more than 76% of straw burning, about 32% of the 22 million tons of the PHP 18.41 billion compost you can see, and 4.4 million hectare harvested areas were burned every year. And another study reported that 150,000 tons during three distinct period. You can witness three distinct period: October to December, January to March, April to May. And in three distinct period, you can see 150,000 tons increase to 1.6 million tons, and then 730 million. Sorry. Okay. So moving to other Asian countries, as we can see in terms of Indonesia, 45 million tons crop residue is burning, and the CRB percentage in the total pollution is around 36%. While in terms of Thailand, as you can see, a different period, when the CRB percentage is around 15%. For Vietnam, CRB percentage is around 21%. It's like February, March, followed by May, June, and August and October, different period. While for Myanmar, the percentage is around 15%. Moving on, we come to Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Nepal. But we can see the almond rice is actually burned in the Bangladesh region. Almond rice straws are actually burned in the Bangladesh region. And while in Nepal, in terms of Nepal, as you can see in the 25, the burn crop residue burn increased by 25%. It was 2280 gigagram in 2003-04, while it increases to 2908 gigagram by 2016-18. And the respiratory diseases have also increased because of this. Our study proved that. While in Pakistan, as Mr. Noor said, that it impacts the 6.5% of the annual GDP. And every year, it's around 3.6 to 5 million tons of rice residues are burnt. And Punjab and Sindh provinces have higher emissions due to agricultural activities. So it's same scenario, both sides of the borders, Indian Punjab or Pakistan Punjab, everywhere, two Punjab, one atmosphere. So these are somewhat statistics, which we can see from the different studies. I would like to clearly, I would like to end my talk with an incident that how it actually happens. As you can see, in the 2016, there was a huge pollution episode happened in Delhi. So I was lucky enough to conduct a study on that. And what we have observed that the PM 2.5 level, which is actually very harmful for health, which actually causes diseases, lung diseases, and whose daily limit is 60 microgram per meter cube as per Indian standards, increased up to 900 microgram per meter cube. And if you can see, this is a picture, but it's a satellite image. Also, there are some 17, 18 years of data. But if you can see the figure that these blue dots are actually fire burning spots from where the wind is carrying the pollution to the Delhi city, Delhi mega city. So the outside pollution, it's actually polluting a mega city, which itself has already have a pollution. So it actually causes a lot of pollution episodes during this period. Even in this picture, this is actually a model output. You can see that only because of biomass burning, how a stretch is coming from the Punjab Haryana region to the Delhi capital region, NCR region. So I think I have not allowed to talk more, but I want to end my talk by saying this, that all these statistics shows that we need a collective action to reduce the crop residue burning because it is actually impacting the health, not only health, but also the economy of the countries directly. And a few years back, I got an opportunity to meet the farmers of the states who told that we all also know that it is actually impacting our health. You have installed an artificial heart, her lungs in a city, and during that crop burning period, we have seen that it blackens within 4 or 5 days. So we know that it actually impacted our health, but we are somewhat helpless. So it is our duty to take collective actions to reduce the crop residue burning so that we can save the premature death due to this exposure. And also we can also save the economy of the country because of this. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tanmoy. This is a very helpful overview of the extent and statistics on the impacts of agricultural burning in the region. And this gives us a better picture and motivation on why we need to act on the issue at the soonest time possible. For us to better understand what is being done in Asia, we also have Ms. Zhang Espita-Casanova to present the regional level initiatives to address agricultural burning. And Ms. Zhang is the program manager of Cleaner Asia, and she oversees the program development and strategic planning for Cleaner Asia's initiatives on transport, energy, and urban air quality. Ms. Zhang, turning over to you.
Thank you, Ever, and good afternoon to our distinguished speakers and guests. Thank you as well, Tanmoy, for setting the scene and providing information on the extent of the issue that we are going to delve in today. And I'd like to follow that up with an overview of some of the initiatives, and this would cover some are international and some are regional initiatives which contribute to the science and action programs which address agricultural burning. So looking at the Southeast Asian region, the ASEAN and its member states have launched several regional initiatives to promote regional cooperation in addressing transboundary haze pollution, a key driver of which, of course, is agricultural burning. And as early as 1992, the issue has already been tackled at the ASEAN Ministerial Meeting on the Environment. And this pushed forward targeted discussions on the issue among member states and ASEAN countries to the formulation and led to the formulation of the ASEAN Regional Haze Action Plan in 1997. Now, while policies on zero burning have been adopted since 1999, increased episodes of haze in agriculture burning have prompted the signing of the ASEAN Agreement on Transboundary Haze Pollution back in 2002 and its ratification by all member states in 2013. Now, to further operationalize that agreement, during the 11th meeting of the Conference of Parties, the parties agreed to develop a roadmap on ASEAN cooperation towards transboundary haze pollution control with means of operation. So the roadmap, this particular roadmap was designed and developed by a task force consisting of senior officials and experts from the ASEAN member states who are mainly the key implementers or enforcers of fire management and transboundary haze pollution control in the respective countries. And they have also invited experts and partners to support the development of the roadmap. So what it provides is a strategic framework for the implementation of collaborative actions towards controlling transboundary haze, including agricultural burning in the region. So if we look at it closely, it has 4 main components. So it has a vision, the overall goal, and of course the indicators to which progress will be ascertained, and then of course outlining key strategies with measures of progress and actions. So if we look at the key operational provisions of the ASEAN agreement, this would include monitoring, prevention, and also assistance. And what the roadmap did was translate these provisions into key strategies, which would in the future guide the formulation and implementation of concrete and collective actions. Now, looking at the bullets in my slide, we can see that the strategies vary in terms of degree of focus. And we note that there is a specific strategy for the effective implementation of the agreement as a whole, like a collective program. But we can see that sectoral or work area focus is also evident. And this includes a specific strategy on the sustainable management of agricultural land and forest for large-scale forest and or land fires prevention. There were also strategies that were set that are cross-cutting, which focus also on institutional and collaboration strengthening strategies, such as on policies and implementation, enhancing knowledge and experience exchange, and also increasing public awareness and engagement. And this all, of course, aim to reinforce the effectiveness of the roadmap implementation. Now, in terms of adoption and rollout of the member states, the roadmap provides scope to check or ascertain the capacity and capability of member states and provide recommendations as to the timescales and responsible entities for implementing the actions. So moving to South Asia, we also have the Mali Declaration on Control and Prevention of Air Pollution and its likely transboundary effects for South Asia, which is an intergovernmental network involving Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Iran, the Republic of Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and also Sri Lanka. Now, this forum or this initiative emphasizes on the need for countries, of course, to carry forward or initiate studies looking at the state and formulating solutions for air pollution in the region. So the program or the initiative has been supported by the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, or SIDA, since 1999. And this has led to remarkable progress also in promoting regional cooperation on air pollution, while in parallel building the knowledge base on monitoring the status of air pollution and also assessing the impacts of air pollution in the region. It has also focused on activities which built capacities at the national level and assisting policy development and also information and experience sharing. Now, the last phases of the initiative aimed at promoting policy measures which focus on controlling short-lived climate pollutants in the region in an integrated manner with air pollution, and also to ensure the sustainability of such efforts. The initiative has formed a task force on future development of the declaration, and which also, of course, supports the sustainability and ownership of programs, and also sustainability of providing support to member countries to enhance their regional cooperation, monitoring, and impact assessment. Now, during this years, it was recognized, of course, that it's important to maintain the momentum that the initiative has already put forward. And so what they did was also to mobilize resources on the side to finance activities. And however, of course, we can expect that without really strong funding behind activities somewhat slowed down in terms of implementation. And so, while recognizing the importance of this initiative, what is present today or what is active today is that the Stockholm Environment Institute and the Climate and Clean Air Coalition have initiated to revive the commitment to the Mali Declaration as a forum in the region to address air pollution and climate change. Of course, this revival is occurring at a time when international interest in regional cooperation on air pollution is increasing. We may have witnessed recent developments and regional fora convened by the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and also the UN Economic Commission for Europe, where countries and experts and practitioners in these regions are convened to share best practices and opportunities for collaboration. So with regard to the recommitment to Mali Declaration, a new draft agreement and work plan are now being finalized and outlined with strategies to mobilize the required finance, of course, linking to other activities promoting regional cooperation in Asia. So on a larger geographic scope, the Climate and Clean Air Coalition Agriculture Hub also brings together governments, intergovernmental organizations, and along with private sector and NGOs to convene and share expertise and support countries in mitigating short-lived climate pollutants from the agriculture sector. And this hub works closely with other hubs of the CCAC, including linking its or harnessing synergies with the National Action Planning Hub, the Waste Hub, and also the Methane Roadmap Action Program, with, of course, the aim to maximize resources available and to foster more collaboration among actors. So the Agriculture Hub, this is led mainly by Costa Rica and United States, and also a co-lead from the region is Vietnam. And this co-leadership ensures, of course, that there's buy-in and support and ownership of the governments, and the solutions are co-developed and co-identified with them. So other non-state members also support the hub, and this would include countries not only from the region, but from outside the region as well. So the Climate and Clean Air Coalition sets forward targets and goals, and by 2030, it aims to, of course, enhance and encourage partners to collectively ensure that agricultural burning and mitigation measures for this are fully considered in national climate policy, and that national commitment is present to put forward or to push forward implementation strategies in the region. So presently, the CCAC works in India, along with partners from the academia and research domains, which of course engages not only experts and science leaders, but also the farmers themselves who help develop the measures and solutions to the problem. And in a similar manner, the International Rice Research Institute promotes projects on alternative straw management options, which the farmers themselves apply and adopt. And this guide discussions among policymakers in GHG and SLCP emission reductions from the agriculture sector. And lastly, as also for the information of everyone, so at the in Europe, so the executive body of the Convention on Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution adopted a work plan in 2021 for the implementation of a guidance document on the reduction of emissions from agricultural residue burning. And this document mainly aims to provide best practice and implementation guidance to parties or to member states in mapping and monitoring activities to define the extent of the agricultural residue burning, to provide guidance on the education and training of stakeholders, including farmers, and guidance on developing regulations and accessing and mobilizing financial support. So those are just chunks of like information on the different initiatives that are present to support the formulation of action plans and implementation of measures in related to agricultural burning. So over to you, Ever.
Many thanks, Zhang, for sharing that regional overview. And with the extent of the issue on agricultural burning, definitely regional collaborative efforts will play a role. Before we proceed with the rest of the sessions, here are some questions in the Q&A box from our participants. And if you click on the Q&A panel here in Zoom, you would see that some of them have already been answered. So thank you very much, of course, to Dr. Tanmoy. He already emphasized there are various drivers which drive the rates of crop residue burning. And as well, if you wanted to look into the environmental impact, we can do air quality modeling using climate chemistry model and satellite data. Dang is now typing her answer for the question on what are the opportunities for member countries to advance action on agricultural open burning in line with the regional initiatives that she discussed. So while Ms. Dang is typing her answer, we encourage everyone to continue putting in your question in the Q&A box. In South Asia, the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, or UNESCAP, has been looking into challenges and solutions on crop residue management to avoid agricultural burning in South Asia. Our next speaker is Dr. Takashi Takahatake, Economic Affairs Officer of the UNESCAP. He has extensive experience on sustainable livelihoods, food security, and rural development issues, particularly in South Asia and Africa. Today, he is going to share with us the outcomes and way forward from the UNESCAP meeting on crop residue management in South Asia, advancing sub-regional cooperation for sustainable, climate-smart, and integrated management of crop residues. Dr. Takahatake, welcome to the virtual podium.
Thank you very much, Everlyn, for that kind introduction. And good afternoon, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. Let me just share my screen. And we'll try to get this started. Okay. Do you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So today I'm going to present on challenges and solution on crop residue management to reduce agricultural burning in South Asia. There are many things in the last presentation that there are some similarities in between what's happening in South Asia as well. So I think this will be a good sort of overview of what's happening in the South Asia region. So just to give a bit of a background, again, as the previous speakers have mentioned, crop burning is a key environmental hazard, and in many South Asian countries, this is also the case. And then particularly if we look at the densely populated Indo-Gangetic Plain area, which covers like from Pakistan, eastern northern India, Nepal, and Bangladesh. The burning of crop residues emits toxic smoke, and this poses extreme sort of serious health threats to rural and urban populations. The burning is also harmful to subsequent agriculture production, as it depletes soil of its organic matters, nutrients, microorganisms, and of course there are greenhouse gases which are emitted, which contribute to global warming and climate change. So this issue is really impacting numerous SDGs, including SDG 2 on zero hunger, 3 on good health and well-being, 11 on sustainable cities and communities, and SDG 13 on climate action. So I mean, as air pollution from crop residue burning, it's a cross-border issue. So you do need cooperation between countries to try to address the problem. So as such, ESCAP, the sub-regional office for South and Southwest Asia, for which I am working for, and our ESCAP Center for Sustainable Agriculture Mechanization based in Beijing, China, we joined hands to undertake national studies in Bangladesh, India, Nepal, and Pakistan to better understand the situation of crop residue management, collect good practices, technologies, and propose some actions for national level interventions. A sub-regional report is also being finalized that tries to summarize some of the key findings from these studies, explore key actions in areas of sub-regional cooperation that can promote the sustainable and integrated management of crop residues and reduce their burning. And so this is what I'll try to highlight in my presentation today. So with regard to residue production, there's actually no systematic collection of data on the amount of biomass that is produced in the 4 countries. However, efforts were made to try to estimate the amount of biomass produced by major crops through the use of secondary sources. While we can't really sort of make direct comparisons of the numbers because the methodologies used to estimate the residues are a bit different, there are some general trends that we can see. For example, rice and wheat constitute the majority of residue produced in the sub-region. Rice crop residue is quite prominent in Bangladesh and Nepal, as you can see with the areas that are sort of colored in blue. And wheat sees a larger share in India and Pakistan, as you can see with the area colored in orange. Now, there are a variety of what we call in situ and ex situ practices that are found in the study countries for the management of crop residues. So for in situ management, we have sort of the incorporation of straw stubble into the soil. And we also have residue mulching, which is basically you use the residue as a mulch and spread the straw out evenly. So these are 2 main in situ practices which you find. And with regard to ex situ practices that are common across all countries, we have the use of the straw, for example, as animal feed or bedding for cattle, compost making. These are part of traditional farming practices, which can be found in all 4 countries. The burning of straw for domestic fuel and the creation of value-added items or paper, mats, handicrafts, these are also all present. And then there is also the use of straw for mushroom production, which was found in all countries except Pakistan. And then when it comes to the use of crop residues as a source of energy production, such as biogas and power generation, India was really much more advanced in terms of the development of technologies that could be used, that could potentially use crop residues in this way. So what are the factors that really influence the burning of crop residues? So one of the major reasons lies if you look at the rice wheat cropping systems, whereby there's only between 10 to 20 days available for farmers to harvest the rice crop and plant wheat seeds. Delays in planting the wheat can affect wheat yields, so there's immense pressure for farmers to get the harvesting and planting done quickly. And so the easiest, cheapest way to get rid of these residues is to burn them. If we look at the potential use of crop residues, there's perhaps a lack of awareness about the downside of burning. For example, as farmers believe that crop residue burning is actually good for plants and the soil as it helps to control, pests, weeds, and diseases. But the burning actually contributes to soil degradation from the loss of nutrients, organic matter. It can kill plants and insects that are actually good for the soil, and it increases soil erosion. So conservation agricultural practices can make use of residues to improve soil health. It can increase productivity, obviously reduce pollution, and enhance the overall sustainability and resilience of agricultural systems. But knowledge of such practice is limited. And it's also found that in Bangladesh and Nepal, paddy straw is fed to livestock, but this is not as prevalent in India and Pakistan, which leads to the burning of paddy straw in these countries as well. With regard to agricultural mechanization, the use of combine harvesters leaves longer straw in the field compared to manual cutting. And there's insufficient quantity of straw management machinery available to manage the higher volume of straw left in the fields. So, and there's also low level of skills and knowledge about crop residue management machinery, which also limits the adoption of technologies. Finally, the scarcity of labor, high costs of collecting and transporting and storing straw, limited storage facilities, lack of market opportunities to use crop residues are also sort of contributors to why the straw eventually gets burned. And there are limited incentives or subsidies for farmers to manage crop residues in alternative ways. So there are various machines that are used. These are just some photos of different types of machines to help in the in situ management of straw residues. They include mulchers, combine harvesters with straw management systems, that can sort of spread straw evenly across the fields to act as mulch. And then there are also seeders that are available that can plant seeds either with or without mixing of crop residues into the soil. In India, there is a scheme that was started up on in situ management of crop residues with some financial assistance to purchase straw management equipment and also some capacity building activities. And between 2016 to 2021, there was a reduction of about 52% in the level of burning, but that has sort of remained a bit constant now. In Pakistan in 2021, some subsidies were provided for straw choppers and a pack seeder, which was developed in Pakistan with a limited number of machines that have been provided. In Nepal, particularly in the Tarai belt, which is the sort of plain area of Nepal, a few farmers started to use imported machinery. And in Bangladesh, there are some strip till planters and zero till planters that have been developed and promoted by organizations such as CIMIT and other programs. So there are some best practices that came out from the studies that were carried out for residue mulching. For example, the use of zero till drills or a happy seeder machine was found to be quite helpful, preferably after the operation of combine harvesters with straw management systems. For residue incorporation, we have these paddy chopper cum spreaders with different types of plows and tillers that are found to be helpful. Basically, the benefits of in situ straw management is that it can save nutrients such as nitrogen and potassium. It can reduce the use of irrigation water, increases soil organic carbon, and restores microbial activities in the soil. Now, in situ management should be supported by ex situ management practices. So you have like straw reapers, balers, and rakes that can use to help in the collection of straw. The straw can then be used for various ex situ uses. We have some good examples. For example, the use of paddy straw for composting, which can then be used as fertilizer in the field. There are biogas plants that have been developed at sort of domestic community levels that can generate power for domestic use and also used for fertilizers as well. And then there's a transformation of residues into like pellets or briquettes that can be used as fuel for power plants. And technologies also exist to produce like compressed natural gas and ethanol that are less environmentally polluting than fossil fuels. So what are the challenges and gaps that exist in the management of residues? Well, if we look at the in situ, basically the use of combine harvesters, which are an extremely important labor saving machine, but they do increase the volume of straw left in the field compared to manual cutting, which leave very short stubble. And a study in Nepal actually found that there was a greater instances of residue burning with the increased use of combine harvesters. There are some of the crop residue management machinery require tractors with high horsepower or tractors that are greater than 50 horsepower. And these types of tractors are less commonly found, I guess, in the study countries. And the operational cost of the machinery is obviously high compared to burning. And the seasonal use of machinery, of course, makes it difficult to invest in the purchase of such machinery. Also, local machine manufacturers may not be able to provide the machinery that's needed locally, and the lack of spare parts or poorly equipped repair shops also limit the adoption of technologies. With regard to conservation agriculture adoption, farmers do have an apprehension on possible yield losses that can be incurred. And there are some, I guess, negative attitudes or perceptions with it. For example, there is a preference, to have nicely looking fields versus sort of untilled, shabby ones that characterize fields that are being cultivated using conservation agricultural practices. When we look at the ex situ management, the main issue lies in the high costs of collecting the residues and transporting them to collection centers. The lack of assured crop residue supply and markets for the processed byproducts also hampers investments needed to establish, the collection centers and the supply chain management facilities. And there is really a need for technical and economic feasibility studies to better understand the potentials for the propagation of different ex situ management options. And then there's some other common issues, which I mentioned previously. There's a lack of reliable data on the volume, utilization, surplus of residues, which hampers really the understanding of the situation on the ground. And while countries have agriculture mechanization or agricultural policies in place, the management of crop residues are really not adequately considered in these policies. So you might have, for example, subsidies for machinery such as combine harvesters, but no such subsidies for straw management machines, for example. So there is a need for crop residue management policies, and this was identified as important. And then you really do need to develop incentives for farmers not to burn, as solely relying on disincentives such as fines. It doesn't address the crux of the problem that farmers are facing. So what is the way forward? Basically, I think the strategy should be to try to assign a real economic and commercial value to the crop residues and make burning an economic loss to the farmer. You need a combination of technologies and incentives to try to move such a strategy forward. Any solutions that involve long-haul transportation, expensive technology, or high capital investments are less likely to succeed. And the in situ management practices should be preferred, as it feeds nutrients that are contained in residues back into the soil. And then the in situ should be supplemented with ex situ management techniques. There are some recommendations which came up. So with regard to mechanization, really the promotion of conservation agricultural practices and crop residue management machinery is important because it can really help to enhance soil health. But there is some work needed to develop machinery that's suitable for small farmers. The provision of machinery at subsidized rate, promotion of custom hiring systems, and provision of soft loans to purchase implements can improve access to conservation agriculture machinery. When we talk about the custom hiring systems, these are basically services that where a farmer, you can pay money for a company to come in, bring in the equipment to help you sort of plow your fields or harvest crops. So there are various custom hiring systems that exist on the ground. And then, of course, large-scale demonstrations and training workshops are needed really to raise awareness and capacities and sort of change the current agricultural practices that are leading to burning. With regard to institutional interventions, there's a need to carry out surveys using sort of a uniform protocol to collect data on the utilization, surplus straw resources, the amount of burning that's taking place, to really understand the situation of crop residue on the ground, management on the ground. And then these information can also help to develop policies. There's also a need for developing mechanisms for the aggregation of biomass and collection of biomass for ex situ uses. The development of carbon credit schemes for farmers using conservation agriculture and not burning residue was also proposed. And you really need to enforce appropriate legislation to prevent burning through incentives and deterrence. Some socioeconomic interventions that have been identified included the need for media campaigns and community programs, really to raise awareness on the negative impacts of residue burning on health and the environment. capacity building and conservation agricultural practices, and the establishment of self-help groups and encouraging unemployed youths to take up, for example, custom hiring of crop residue management machineries as a profession. And then there are a variety of other interventions that could be used for power generation, including biogas and pellets as fuel substitutions for thermal pads, etc. And so there are some areas of sub-regional cooperation that can be done to help address the issue of crop residue burning. So there can be some joint studies and research and analytical studies that can be carried out. So this issue of the lack of data, if we can collect some data that's sort of comparable between countries, you can really better understand the level of residue that's being produced and how it's being used. And you can leverage existing networks of agriculture research institutions. We've given examples of APARI, CIMMYT, IRRI, to support such joint research. Fire mapping studies can help you to understand the extent of burning that's taking place. This can help you, if you do it over time, you can see what kinds of trends occur over time and help you to better understand the situation. So again, the development of mechanisms for aggregating crop residue biomass to try to make the ex situ practices more economically viable is an area that could be looked at. And ESCAP, we could facilitate the sharing of experiences from India and other Asia Pacific countries on domestic and cross-border agriculture supply chains and how that might be applicable for this crop residue biomass aggregation. This is probably one of the most important areas, is the sharing of technologies, equipment, and practices for the management of crop residues. The technical exchanges of knowledge between countries, organization of skill development programs, even pilots of crop residue management practice could be facilitated by entities such as ESCAP and our Center for Sustainable Agriculture Mechanization, also the SARC Agricultural Center, and the formation of a R&D funding pool to help develop sort of machines and solutions could also be helpful for development of technologies to manage crop residues. And ESCAP, we could work with SARC to try to establish these funds. And finally, the last area that came out from the studies was the harmonization of testing standards and promoting more integrated trade of agriculture machinery. Basically, if you can harmonize testing codes and develop sort of mutually recognized sort of certificates that can facilitate trade of quality and efficient machinery, this can be quite beneficial to make sort of the agriculture machinery more available. And the strengthening of ties between agriculture machinery manufacturers and distributors can also help to promote trade of such machinery. At ESCAP, our Center for Sustainable Agriculture Mechanization, they are facilitating two initiatives. So there's the ANTAM initiative, which is the Asian and Pacific Network for Testing of Agriculture Machinery, as well as the Regional Council of Agriculture Machinery Associations in Asia Pacific. And so these networks, this work is being facilitated by ESCAP, and so such efforts will be continued in the future in this regard. So yeah, that's the gist of my presentation, and I welcome any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Dr. Takahatake, thank you very much for that comprehensive, at the same time, unfortunate that we have limited time, but that's already a very good overview of the concrete steps that are being done and the extensive work that the ESCAP has done on the issue. And ultimately, we actually have a lot of questions in the Q&A. But what we'll do now is have a very short health break, and we'll be back by 3:45. This is also to give a bit more time for Dr. Takashi to prepare for the questions. So right now we're going on a very short health break. We would all be back by 3:45. Thank you. All right, good afternoon to everyone back in the webinar. Again, we thank you for attending today's knowledge sharing event on agricultural burning, sectoral to regional impacts and solutions, organized by Cleaner Asia on behalf of the ADB as part of the South-South knowledge sharing on air quality and carbon neutrality. We have received several questions in our Q&A panel box, and right now what we'll do is to have a short Q&A. So all of our, most of our speakers are still here with us and they would be answering our questions. The first question that we will discuss on the floor is on, there's a question on, do we have maybe a trend analysis of sorts on transboundary impact patterns? I think Dr. Tanmoy can perhaps share insights on this.
Just let me have a look at the question. Do we have maybe a trend analysis of sort of transboundary impact patterns? Yeah, that we can do. But actually, it depends because the sowing seasons are, as the harvesting season and sowing seasons are different. Therefore, the country-wise, it varies. The biomass burning events varies drastically. As I showed in my presentation, that you can see even during the March-April period, you can experience a biomass burning event, while even the October-November, you can experience the biomass burning event. So therefore, identifying a transboundary event can be possible not by monitoring, but by using climate chemistry models, which actually allows you to tweak the emissions. So in that way, it can be possible.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tanmoy. So, Mr. Joshi, I hope we answered your question well. Some of the questions have already been answered by our speakers. If you click on the answered panel in the Q&A box, I think for the rest of the questions, most of them are addressed to Dr. Takashi. So the first question, Dr. Takashi, would be, is there any support from the governments to implement in situ and ex situ crop residue management practices? So I think he's wondering about the tangible support, patterns of support that you've seen in the many countries that you've worked in. Dr. Takashi, you are
Sorry, the mute button wasn't unmuting. Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Yeah, I don't remember everything off the top of my head. There's a fair bit of detail in all the national studies, but I guess one common thing would be to sort of try to provide subsidies for different types of machinery, which can help in the management of straw residue. And the level of subsidies may differ according to the type of person. So, for example, if it's a local cooperative that wants to sort of purchase this equipment and try to establish a custom hiring service for this, there might be a higher percentage of subsidy that's given. I think in India it was about 80% subsidy on the purchase of the equipment, and this can then make the the provision, the purchasing much easier, but also be able to provide the services at a lower cost. So a lot of these are sort of financial incentives would be a lot revolving around procurement and purchasing of equipment. I think that's I mean, there may be other things in the reports, but I just don't remember everything off the top of my head.
Yeah, but I think that's already very helpful, Dr. Takashi. Ultimately, government subsidies are playing a big role. In relation to this, another question is if were there efforts done by the UNESCAP to also trace on the financial aspect of funding for the machineries? I mean, I think as you've mentioned, for every country, it differs on how much subsidy is being provided. Are there other opportunities, for funding such machineries or other technology interventions?
I mean, from the studies, it's basically, we've just looked at the sort of state of affairs in terms of, what's actually happening on the ground. could actually be interesting to see. And again, this is, I think, one of the important things of sharing experiences and knowledge is that you can then look and see how different countries have tried to deal with it. What has worked, what hasn't worked, what are the good options and bad options for implementing certain things. And so that sharing of ideas and knowledge, I think, can help governments to, maybe tweak what they've been doing. You might get a good idea from one country and try to adjust whatever policies that you do have in place. But we don't have any sort of specific study looking at the financial aspects in such depth.
Thank you, Dr. Takashi. I think this is also a good discussion point, for all of our participants here who are also looking into what can we study further on this issue. So at least we have recognized this aspect has to be really further looked into and promote, sharing communities of practice. In relation to this, Dr. Takashi, Mr. Grebo is asking, on the point on negative attitudes and perceptions, that it's very important. Any thoughts on how we can overcome these? I mean, plus broader behavioral aspects. Perhaps the economic incentives can help to overcome this, but how do we overcome these negative attitudes and perceptions? Since you mentioned that some of the reasons why it doesn't work or it's not being implemented, there's a certain set of perceptions for our farmers or those working in the sector.
Yeah, I mean, farmers, they're innately risk adverse, right? They've been farming in certain ways. They've been practicing the certain types of practices. It's been tried, true, and tested, and they feel comfortable in doing this. If you ask people to start, then all of a sudden fundamentally change the way that they're doing agriculture, for example, conservation agriculture, it is different, right? There is going to be apprehension. Because if it messes up, this is their livelihood. They need to eat. They need to be able to produce food on themselves. They need to be able to sell food on the market, and so anything that can sort of disrupt that, it's going to be looked at, with a cautious eye. So, I mean, even within a community, you might have one person who's actually trying and testing and doing it while others don't do it at all. I mean, I think one of the things is that if you can do like sort of larger sort of demonstrations, if we can find some good practices from different regions, do some pilot testing in terms of adapting agriculture machinery to the local context, because just because a tractor and sort of machine works in one region of India doesn't mean it's going to work in every single region across, in all the countries. There might be some adaptations that need to be made. Our Center for Sustainable Agriculture Mechanization, they've actually been implementing pilots. I think the project is coming to an end, but they have been sort of implementing pilots to try to test different types of machinery. I think this was in Cambodia, Indonesia, and in Nepal. And there's some minor adjustments that are being made to, different types of machines to try to be better suited for the local environment. And sort of once you have the certain mechanisms that look like they're working, right, you can try to demonstrate and try to disseminate that, and I think slowly try to convince people on the merits. I think at the end of the day, conservation agriculture practices, I mean, they will improve soil quality. It might reduce the need for the amount of fertilizers that you use. It requires less water, less irrigation, so you save money on that. Of course, there are investments that do need to be made, for example, for maybe the various equipment or trying for planting and whatnot. So it's really trying to balance the costs, and hopefully, and as long as the economic benefits are there, I think people can slowly move forward to trying to adopt. But this really, I think, is it's not something that can happen overnight. I think it's something that takes a bit of time to try to convince the farmers to try to change what they've been doing.
Thank you, Dr. Takashi. Ultimately, we have been discussing how they are vulnerable, and at the same time they are responsible for such a big factor in reducing incidences of burning. Ms. Jaime is also asking, actually, Can you give on-the-ground examples for making burning an economic loss to farmer? And in countries where farmers are considered to be one of the most marginalized sectors, what packages might be socio-politically feasible? And I think in relation to your presentation, we can relate it to what you mentioned, that they should be part of the policy development process or in developing the systems related to it.
Yeah, I mean, to make it economic viable, I mean, it's okay. So if we look at the case of Bangladesh, the level of burning or the amount of burning that is occurring in the country is less compared to, for example, India, Pakistan, and Nepal. We did have a meeting to sort of present some of the preliminary findings of the study, and we had a bunch of experts who participated in there. And then one of the participants did mention that, you know, burning in Bangladesh is not as prevalent, but it's also because there is the paddy straw is used for livestock feed, and there's actually an economic value to it, and the value of straw could be you know, equal to that of feed, or even sometimes even higher than the actual crops that are being grown. So I think it really depends on the local, you know, economic aspects of what is feasible. I mean, when I talked about trying to make it sort of an economic loss, I mean, are there ways we can be able to provide a value that we can enhance the value of that straw? So, for example, there are a bunch of ex situ management practices, and actually, I'd be very interested in hearing this case of China, whereby there was a systematic sort of collection of you know, efforts being made to try to collect the straw and use it for different ex situ purposes for power generation, and there was many examples that we saw from the presentation on the situation in China, and you know. Can we make such sort of, I don't know if you want to call it industries or such type of practices sort of economically viable? If they become economically viable, perhaps there's some value that can be put into, that can be, the straw can hold a greater value than what it does now. And you know, then it would be a loss, you know, you'd be sort of burning money if you can actually sell it somewhere. I mean, I don't know whether the, you know, the carbon credit schemes, right? Is this also an option? Because, you know, if there are options to try to see how, if there are carbon credit schemes that could be used for those practicing conservation agriculture and not burning, there's a huge economic incentive to be able to practice and you know, to try to move forward with that practice. So that was sort of maybe the point that I was trying to get across when I was talking about trying to put an economic value on the straw.
Thank you very much, Dr. Takashi. So ultimately also, there is also the barrier that we need to really effectively communicate this economic value to the farmers so that they're better motivated to partake in the efforts.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, even with other agriculture technologies, it can also take time. And sometimes, you know, there might be a lead farmer, a very, you know, who tries it, tests it, right? Their neighbors see what's happening, you know, they see, oh, wow, this guy's, he's earning a lot of money, right? You know, and I think if you see it working, right? I think that is something, then maybe you'll try it, right? And that's how you can try to propagate some of these practices.
Definitely. Thank you, Dr. Takashi. I think for the last one, before we proceed to the next presentation, our attendee is interested about the harmonization of machinery testing codes that you've mentioned and for the CA and certificates to facilitate trade of quality and efficient machinery. Is there any barrier of local product content, and how can we address this?
Okay, so this is definitely not my area of expertise. My colleague from CSAM would probably be better placed to answer this question, because I'm not really aware of what kinds of issues might come about. So what I was presenting here is just a general concept whereby if you can harmonize testing codes, you know, have certificates, you know, this is good quality, you can really help facilitate trade of machinery, and hopefully that in turn can help to lower costs in terms of making machines available across countries.
Thank you very much, Dr. Takashi. No worries at all. Definitely, Dr. Takashi has done a great job of summarizing all the work of UNESCAP on this issue. And ultimately, for those who are still sending questions, please don't worry. Even if we don't get to address them right away, we will include in our documentation all your questions, and we will reach out to our speakers, even those who are not here anymore, so that we can provide you with the answers. So thank you very much, Dr. Takashi, for accommodating the questions. We now proceed to our next presentation, and this is from Dr. Supat Wangwongwatana, lecturer at the Thammasat University. Dr. Supat served as the Director General of the Pollution Control Department of the Royal Thai government for 5 years, in charge of the management of air quality, solid waste, hazardous waste, and chemicals and environmental law enforcement. He is one of the most renowned air quality management experts in Asia, receiving numerous awards for his contributions to air quality improvement in the region. He sends his regrets of not being able to participate live today, but he prepared this presentation for us. Let's listen to Dr. Supat's lecture.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank ADB and Clean Air Asia for inviting me to share our challenges in the implementation of solutions to reduce open burning of agricultural residue and the way forward in Thailand. My presentation will be divided into 2 parts. First part will be on the situation of open burning of biomass in Thailand, the cause and the effect. And part 2 will be the possible solutions, being implemented in Thailand, challenges that we face. And at the end, I will make some recommendation on the way forward. For part 1, on situation of open burning of biomass in Thailand, this is the situation, type of biomass burning in Thailand. There are 4 groups of burning of biomass in Thailand. First, burning of solid waste, the solid waste from households, burning of open dump garbage, or burning of trash and plant residue from the household. And the second group is the burning of agricultural residues, which I'm going to focus on in my presentation during and after harvesting, including rice, sugarcane, corn, or maize. And the third group of burning is the forest fire. And we are informed from the Royal Forest Department that all the forest fire actually caused by human for slash and burn agriculture, wild animal hunting, and wild mushroom and plant harvesting. This is the picture of the mushroom that people go into the forest and then have the fire set so that they can get the mushroom from the ground. And the fourth group of biomass burning is the land clearing fire, which can be seen both on the highways and also on the land with some kind of weeds that people would like to clear the land. And the situation in actually not only in Thailand, but in the northern part, in the Mekong sub-region, the left picture on the map of Thailand show the area of the type of area of burning, and you will see the dark or the black area, 41% is actually the agricultural area, and the forest area reserve for both conservation forests and reserve forests are around 60%. And on the right hand side, this is the situation of the hotspot detected from the satellite in 2019. The hotspot in the northern part of Thailand during April, and also in our neighboring country as well, in the Mekong sub-region. And the right-hand photo here, this is the most recent hotspot detected from the NASA satellite on 29th of March this year. And you see many hotspots accumulated on 29th of March. And that actually caused the haze situation in the northern part of Thailand, a very serious situation this year. On the left-hand side, this is the outcome or the result from the ASMC located in Singapore on the detection of hotspot and the dispersion of haze in the northern part of ASEAN. For the haze situation in Thailand, in particular in the northern part of Thailand, you see starting from here in March, the accumulative number of hotspots go up very quickly and then level down in after April. And this coincides go along well with the high concentration of PM 2.5, which start to be high in March and go on to around the end of April every year, including this year as well. And this slide actually show the situation in 2023 early, actually last month. On the left-hand photo is on the 28th March, and the middle figure here is actually the level of PM 2.5 in Thailand. And you will see Bangkok and also the southern part has a very low, quite low PM 2.5. But in the northern part, the concentration of PM 2.5 on 28th of March this year go up to 500, more than 500 microgram per cubic meter. And you see this group of red color that is in a unhealthy air quality of PM 2.5. And it go along well with the number of hotspots on 28th of March and also on 29th of March as well. So this is quite a serious situation this year that PM 2.5 in the northern part actually come mainly from the open burning, both in the forest and also in the agricultural area as well. In Bangkok, no one probably think that there will be open burning of biomass in Bangkok. But from the study that we found, the source contribution of PM 2.5 in Bangkok actually come from biomass burning of 32%. And where do they burn biomass? From the agriculture. In fact, the northeastern part of Bangkok, right here, there are still a lot of rice paddy field, and the farmer still practice burning of rice straw after harvesting. And it's happened that during the dry season or the beginning of the year, the wind come from the northeastern direction, and it actually blow all the smoke from the agricultural residue burning into Bangkok area. That is why we detect a high percentage of PM 2.5 coming from biomass burning in Bangkok as well. And that also go along well with the peak of PM 2.5, which normally happen every year at the beginning of the year from January to around April of every year. And it's actually exceed the ambient air quality standard of Thailand. Why do farmers burn? It is because it's the cheapest way to get rid of the agricultural residue. And it's also save time, since burning is very quick. You ignite the fire, you set the fire, and then within several hours, all the biomass on the field will be burned. But that actually causes a lot of smoke emitted into the air. And it's also less labor intensive. Instead of having a lot of people or labor to cut the sugarcane, and then also the leaf of the sugarcane are very sharp. So no worker would like to work on that kind of situation. So the farmer normally will burn all the leaf of the sugarcane and then cut the sugarcane, and then there will be the second time burning after the harvesting. And it's also because of the traditional attitude and practice and belief. Most of the farmers feel that or believe that fire will actually kill the insect and pest in the soil, and eventually will make the crop grow better than without burning. Now let's go to the second part on possible solution for open burning of biomass in Thailand. There are many solutions already been implemented, but it's still in a very limited scale. For example, the deep ploughing in rice cultivation. This also been practiced in some community by having some kind of ploughing very deep into the soil, and then we'll turn the soil over the rice straw on the surface. And with that, for example, on the right-hand side, this is the ploughing machine, which actually turn the soil upside down, cover the rice straw, and the rice straw will be under anaerobic condition. And with the help of effective microorganism, all the rice straw will then be decomposed into fertilizer. And that's been practiced in some of the village in Thailand. For the sugarcane, the government implement differential pricing between the burn and non-burn sugarcane. The non-burn sugarcane will get a better price from the government. Incentive from the government will be given to the farmer who do not burn sugarcane fuel. And also the use of cutting machine, which will not require worker go into the field and cut the sugarcane. But anyway, the machine is quite expensive, and there is also capital investment issues for the machine. If it is a small scale farmer, it will be quite difficult for the farmer to make investment. That is why the government also developed a kind of machine sharing center, so that the farmer can in the community can share using the machine by making some kind of reservation, and then take the machine cutting the sugarcane, and the other farmer will then continue to use that. The other solution that been implemented in Thailand is the use of biomass from the agricultural residue as fuel to produce energy. And on the left-hand side, this is the location of the biomass fuel power plant in Thailand. Using rice straw and rice husk as fuel. Some of them use the raw rice husk and rice straw, but some of the power plant also make rice husk and rice straw into pellet in order to reduce the size instead of rice straw, and which is very bulky. And there are some other uses of agricultural residue as well. For example, they're being used as material for soil mulching, livestock food for livestock, and also bedding, cultivation of mushroom, and lastly the composting of agricultural residue to make natural fertilizer or organic fertilizer. The rice straw also can be used to produce a variety of household products, and some of the products shown in this photo actually produced from IKEA. But there are also industry in Thailand using rice straw as a raw material to produce pulp, and then from the pulp produce a container for food, something like that. These are some of the good practices in Thailand around the country, all over the organic fertilizer bank, the promotion of collection, baling of rice straw in order to reduce the burning of the rice straw on the field, and the promotion of agricultural learning center in order to upscale the non-burning practice and make a farm enterprise also been implemented, because once the farm being bigger and bigger, it is possible economically to use machine, to make investment on machine to collect rice straw or the cutting machine for sugarcane. But at the end, if it's still necessary to burn, the government also developed a system for the farmer to make registration for burning. In order to burn, the farmer will have to register and make a request to the local authority that they would like to burn some of the biomass from the agricultural residue, and the registration or the request will then be considered by using system. The system will then calculate how much area could be burned for that particular day, taking into account the meteorological condition and the burning area which will be allowed for the whole day will not actually cause the level of PM 2.5 exceed the standard. If that particular day the meteorological condition is unfavorable for the dispersion, then the request for burning will be denied. There are some challenging issues, since a lot of farmers in Thailand still continue to burn agricultural residue left over after harvesting. Banning of open burning will require a lot of enforcement effort, and which is very difficult. The government doesn't have enough staff in order to go around and then do the enforcement of the banning of open burning. The machines are expensive, and it also takes quite long time for farmers to change their attitude, their behavior, since they've been practiced open burning of agricultural residue for generations already. The financing non-burner burning technology and practice as well, where the budget will come from. The difficulty in collecting and transport agricultural residue, because most of them will be very bulky and will be very difficult to collect and transport for other use as well. The pollution problem from biomass power generation, and although we use the residue as fuel for power generation, but sometimes the power plant also emit a lot of particulate matter from the stack as well. So it become not burning in the fuel, but burning as fuel in the power plant, but emitting particulate matter from the stack. At the end, I would like to make some recommendation on the way forward in order to solve or reduce all of the challenges that I mentioned. Recently, in just last year, in June 2022, a group of master students at Asian Institute of Technology has actually developed a program called DeFi. This is a Thai startup in order to fight crop residue burning and air pollution with green financing. The mission of the DeFi is to make meaningful impact on society and contribute to climate change by reducing crop burning issue in Thailand. So the system will work with the farmer directly, register the farmer which will not burn their agricultural residue, and turn that into carbon credits, so that the farmer will have additional income from non-burning agricultural residue. And that carbon credit will then be sold to the organization that need carbon offset. So, and that in return, the farmer, if they do not burn and produce some kind of carbon credit, then they will have some income back, and then that will be an incentive for the farmer not to burn. So the mission of the DeFi is to stop hunger, stop fire. Not only stop fire, but also help the livelihood of the farmer as well. This will be the idea that I'm proposing in Thailand, the circular economy and the value chain creation for the utilization of the biomass agricultural residue. The problem is that there are collection of rice straw, a lot of rice paddy field. The farmer do not want to deal with the rice straw, so they burn. Within a few days, if the rice straw is still on the field, they will burn the rice straw. And they will not have any effort to collect the rice straw, because they have to make an investment, the machine, the baling machine, that they have to make the investment. So we need to find some mechanism so that the rice straw from the field will be collected. And at the other end, there will be user of rice straw. They use the rice straw to produce a lot of product. For example, food container, paper box, power and energy production, paper industry. The biomass can be turned into pulp and then making paper, can be used as animal food, and even can produce furniture or the particle board furniture and some other use. For example, animal foods and fertilizer. How can we make these two groups of people meet the farmer? So what is missing is the link between the two. So we have to create the linkage between the source of the rice straw or the biomass, and the end user of the rice straw or biomass. And this is the idea that we are proposing in Thailand, having a kind of business model to collect. The farmer do not collect by themselves, but there will be a group of people or a company that come in, do the collection of biomass as a business. And in order to reduce the logistic cost, the bale rice straw or biomass will then go through the pre-process center. The pre-process center will reduce the size of the biomass by cutting or chopping the biomass to make it into small pieces and making pulp, and also can produce the pellet, the biomass pellet, so that it can be transported easier. And this pre-processing center will then transport the pre-processed rice straw to the central storage and distribution center. And this central storage and distribution center will then distribute the pre-processed rice straw or agricultural residue to the end user. Many of them that can be can use the pre-processed rice straw. And this middle part here can be developed into a business. And this business will be sustainable. And the rice straw or the agricultural residue, the farmer can sell it to this business unit to increase their income. The business unit do some work on the agricultural residue, reduce the size, doing the logistic, and then transport to the end user. So every one of them, these three groups, the producer of agricultural residue, the business unit in the middle part, and the end user will gain. Everyone will gain, so that the end user doesn't have to go to the producer by themselves, but there will be someone who collect, pre-process the agricultural residue, and then transport the raw material to the factory. So we hope that this kind of model will work and then reduce the burning of the biomass or agricultural residue at the producer level. So if we can do that, there will be multiple benefits from open burning reduction, air quality benefit, climate benefits, other environmental benefits, and health benefit at the end. People will become healthy, reducing mortality and reducing morbidity. And at the end, for the climate benefits, if we use the agricultural residue for power production, making it into solid fuel, and use it as fuel in the production of energy, we can reduce the fossil fuel consumption, and that will then reduce the emission of greenhouse gas. And whatever be emitted from this burning of the agricultural residue will then be returned back to be used by the crops that being grown again and again. So this will produce some kind of net zero emission of carbon, or even going to the carbon neutrality as well at the end. So this is some of the idea that we are working on in Thailand in order to reduce the challenges that we face. Thank you very much for your attention.
So thank you very much to Dr. Supat. It was a very interesting presentation and just shows how much progress has been done. And with all these efforts of Thailand, it's really something that other countries and other governments can learn from. Again, as we have mentioned, although Dr. Supat is not with us here today, please still continue to send your questions in the Q&A box, because we will send them to Dr. Supat and we will share with you his responses via email. And continuing on to our discussions, actually, our next session is also very interesting, because we would now go into the panel discussion. And in the panel discussion, we will welcome back to the podium Dr. Takashi Takahatake, again from the UNESCAP. And Dr. Takahatake will be joined by Mr. Ziaul Haque, Director of the Department of Environment of Bangladesh. Welcome, Director Haque.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
And
good afternoon. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Director Haque. And of course, finally, it's also my pleasure to introduce Ms. Hadika Jamshaid, Carbon Market and NDC's Advisor of the Ministry of Climate Change, Pakistan. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Jamshaid.
Thank you so much. Hello,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you very much for joining us today. And our first key discussion point, and this is actually for Director Haque and Ms. Jamshaid, is what are the biggest challenges you face on addressing agricultural waste burning in your country? Perhaps Ms. Jamshaid can share first.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you for the presentations I've been listening to. Very informative, and congratulations on such a successful session you guys have planned. And coming to the question you have asked, if you look at like the biggest challenge, I feel like if I look from Pakistan perspective, is that there need to be a change in behavior of farmers. So the crop burning residue is done in this manner not only because it's efficient and it's convenient and it's time saving, as mentioned by our previous presenters, but it's also mainly due to the fact that there is very short time frame available for the plantation for the next crop before the monsoon rain. And also, as he said, it's a traditional way of doing it. So people are, not very comfortable changing their way of doing things. And changing this behavior would, require mix of policies, interventions, starting from banning the burning of the crops, and adopting new technology like shedders and seeders. The government is making a lot of efforts in Pakistan, but there's a lot need to be done. In 2019, the government of Punjab introduced a ban on crop burning for 1 month, starting from October. That's the smog period as well. And the district government was asked to fine whoever do the crop burning around $300 USD per acre to the farmers. But the enforcement and the compliance remains one of the major issues when these kind of interventions are announced or introduced. The other thing which I want to mention is about the recent clean air policy, which was developed by the support of ADB. I want to say special thank to Karma, who is part of this session. This clean air policy prioritized 5 areas for Pakistan to focus on, and agriculture to prevent burning of agriculture residue is one of those 5 areas. And the other 5 areas include, transportation sector from moving Euro 5 to Euro 6, industrial sector for enforcing emissions standards for industries, waste, burning of open burning of municipal waste, and household level clean cooking mechanism should be introduced. So it's one of the priorities as well, and governments are taking actions, but a lot needs to be done. And the challenge is, lack of availability of data, lack of institutional capacities to actually enforce what we have identified in the policies and in the actions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jamshaid, for that comprehensive and putting into the bigger context of what else is being done to address air pollution and climate change in your country. We now hear from Director Haque. What would be the biggest challenges that your country is facing on addressing the issue? Director, you are on mute. Okay.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Everlyn, and thank you, the Asian Development Bank and other partner institutions for organizing this very important regional knowledge-sharing event. And in fact, we are now focusing on the agricultural residue burning. And there are challenges, like what rightfully said by Ms. Hadika Jamshaid, that in fact, in rural areas, we have experienced that smallholder farmers and low-income families are mostly use the straw and other agricultural residues for domestic fuel for cooking and heating purposes. And in fact, we know that now the cropping intensity is more than three or more than three, meaning that the farmers tend to cultivate 3 crops a year. So that's why they actually they tend to burn the aggregated residues on the spot, as Dr. Supat has rightfully also pointed out, due to cost saving and time saving benefits. But the point is that we have to have a fair understanding on the implications of crop residue burning at national level. And we can do that through a greenhouse gas inventory, through a source apportionment study. And in fact, we know that crop residue burning is one of the most polluting sources in terms of air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. So at this point in time, we have to have a good understanding on that, and we have to inform the farmers that what are the implications, negative implications that can be brought out from crop residue burning. And in fact, there are some practices going on for many years in country level, in rural areas, and I will touch upon more on this particular area after the discussions as we move along the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Haque. I think for both of the responses, the commonalities would be on the need for the knowledge base that would help inform our farmers, especially on the impacts. And hopefully this would lead to behavioral change. And this actually leads us to our next question, which is on the key solutions and the enabling factors to address agricultural open burning. Let's go first to Dr. Takahatake on the overview, especially on the lessons learned from UNESCAP's overview and studies. I think he has, of course, mentioned this a while back, but maybe just to emphasize again, Dr. Takahatake, on the key solutions and enabling factors.
Okay, thank you very much, Everlyn. Right. So, I mean, in the Q&A in my presentation, I've sort of addressed several things, but maybe I'll just sort of highlight maybe a few areas which I think are important, that has really come out from the studies that we've carried out. I think the first sort of general thing that we need that is important is really to understand the context in which residue burning is occurring. As the situation of farmers will be different between countries, and also even within a country, it can differ. For example, in Nepal, I mean, the issue of residue burning is actually more prevalent in the Terai, the plain region of the country, right? The hill region of Nepal doesn't see as much burning. I mean, it could be due to the smaller parcels of land and the importance of livestock in the overall hill farming systems. And in fact, in some areas, there could be deficits of straw needed for the feeding of livestock during the lean season. So, even within a country, there's going to be some variations. I did mention in my presentation that there was a study where they saw increased use of combine harvesters, which led to increased burning. And I think this is generally something that is common, particularly if the combine harvesters are not equipped with machinery that can help in the management of straw. But I mean, there are also other issues that we might need to consider when trying to understand the overall context of for example, the greater commercialization of farming has led to maybe a more consolidation of land holdings, which actually has been impacting the number of households that are raising livestock as a part of their day-to-day life. And the commercialization of livestock uses commercial animal feed, and so which can reduce which can contribute to the reduction of use of paddy straw, which is used to feed livestock. So you might end up with more surplus there. So any policy solutions that we look to try to design, you really need to understand the situation and consider the nuances that exist within an area to try to ensure that you have a holistic picture on potential things that can be done. And in this context, really trying to have some concrete data in terms of how much is produced, in what regions, how much surplus there is, how much burning there is. I mean, trying to have that fundamental information is important because it can provide a foundation for designing effective interventions, and this information can also help in to better align existing policies to try to address the issues, or maybe develop a dedicated policy for crop residue management and burning, so to ensure that this issue is really being prioritized and supported. I guess the second area, and which I've sort of already talked about in the Q&A, but the solutions that can create an economic value for the proper management of crop residues, I think really should be sort of a focus that should be had on interventions. And I think, if we take the case of Bangladesh, I mean, Bangladesh has been experiencing very strong economic growth over a long period of time, and it's going to be graduating for the least developed country status in 2026. We're seeing increasing rural to urban migration as well, as people try to find better jobs moving into urban areas, and this will also impact labor availability in rural areas. So this in turn, you'll see greater mechanization that will be needed to try to manage the farming systems, and it'll be important to ensure that appropriate technologies are used to ensure that the straw can be used in a sustainable way. And in that sort of note, trying to learn from the issues that other countries are facing, I think Bangladesh can also try to consider what is it within the policies within Bangladesh, that we can improve to try to ensure that this issue of straw management is properly looked at. Right, and then the need for there's a real need for sharing of knowledge and practices and building capacities, both institutional and farm levels. The sharing of experiences and success stories, as well as ways to deal with problems and bottlenecks, is an important activity that can be taken at the sub-regional level. And I think international organizations such as UNESCAP, and there are many others which work in this area, I think should really work to try to facilitate that type of knowledge sharing. And I think this forum in itself is also another one, which is very important to try to raise awareness on the issues that are there. I mean, there could be many innovative practices, that can have higher productivity, improve soil structure, lower production costs in various countries, and people can learn from this, and it could allow for the co-development of solutions and perhaps create business opportunities for farmers and the private sector as well. I think the sharing, it's important to include all different stakeholders that are involved in the agricultural sector, because it's not just a government, right? You have the farmers, you have civil society organizations, you have the private sector. All of these groups have to come together to discuss. And then, I think, some changes, and I think it's been raised, such as the propagation of conservation agricultural practices, these practices, perceptions, behaviors, it does take time. And I think we really do need to make efforts to try to raise awareness, show how things can be done, try to disseminate as much as possible, the negative effects that burning has, right? And the benefits that you have in trying to not burn. And this can try to help convince farmers on the viability. And I think if something is economically viable, I think that is something that can then pave the way for its adoption. So those are just some general thoughts.
Thank you, Dr. Takashi. I think that's beautifully put, wherein we really have to emphasize on making use of the data to really make sustainable solutions that are specific, looking into the economic viability to really convince them that, hey, this is working, I can earn more, I can save more if these are adopted, and ultimately including all stakeholders, sharing of best practices such as this platform to really learn from each other. Curious to hear how about in the context of Pakistan, Ms. Jamshaid, what do you perceive as key solutions and enabling factors?
Thank you. I think Mr. Takashi, he mentioned most of the points, and I completely agree with him and echo what he's saying, that we need to have a lot of knowledge sharing and to have these regional kind of initiatives where we can learn from each other's country, and those solution can be customized looking at countries' own political or economical situation for that matter. So I completely agree with those points, and just adding on to what he has said, that we need to have a strong policies and initiatives, and to make sure that those initiatives are complied by and they are implemented in a proper way. For Pakistan, we need to have agriculture waste supply chain to incentivize the farmers that they can get some extra cash from their waste, can be an effective way to see that there is an incentive if they don't do this, and also to provide machinery which green technology, introduction of green technology, for example, rice production. There was a small project initiated by the Punjab government where they gave 500 rice farmers those machinery, and to eliminate the need of crop burning. And at this point, they are evaluating the impact it had so that it can be subsidized in future, or some solution can be found for them. And also they can be the focus can be on the to set up a storage facility for crop residues this way in the areas where the most of the crop burning incidents are happening. So this will give them some especially in the rice production, so give them not to incentivize them not to do the crop burning. But also I think when we talk about crop burning, it has to be in a way that we need to mobilize the community through community-based organizations and farmers associations, so that it can generate that effect where the community is working for the environmental benefits, and it empowers the farmers in the process as well. And the last point which Mr. Takashi made, I want to emphasize on that we need to look at this not just as waste to energy opportunity or agriculture related opportunity, but we have to look at it in a nexus. It's not just agriculture problem or an energy project. It's a problem. It's an environmental issue, and we need to see how this can be the cross-cutting alignment can be done between environment, agriculture, economy, social aspect in education, energy. So that's like not look into this in silos. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jamshaid. Now, would like to hear what about in the context of Bangladesh, Director Haque.
Thank you very much. And in fact, I fully support what has been said by previous speakers on a number of issues. In fact, in Bangladesh, we have seen that traditionally the farmers know that incorporating crop residue into the soil is good for the soil health. So over the years, they have got this knowledge, and that's why we have also experienced in my country that open field burning of rice straw and other crop residues is not widely practiced, since the major part of the plant is cut manually to a greater extent and carried to home yard and nearby plot for threshing purposes. So this is one important element that we have to highlight, that there are some advantages that already the farmers are practicing at their doorsteps. But there are few farmers, as already told by pointed out by Takashi, that those farmers, they are rich farmers. They use combined harvesters. And they normally they do the agricultural residue burning, and there are some other long straws that cannot be used for domestic purposes. They can be actually they can be used for other purposes, like for cattle feed and other animal feeds. So I feel that there are already a good number of tools already practiced by the farmers in our countries and in South Asia and Southeast Asia. So we have to promote those already practiced tools and we have to upscale those activities and experiences to a greater extent in the future. And for instance, I can name some of the important practices that farmers are following over the years, like they can increase, they can actually mix the cow dung with rice straw for biogas plant. And they can also use rice and wheat straw for mulching purposes in dry areas. And there are other number of practices that we should highlight and we should promote in the future. And finally, I would say that as said by Takashi and Hadika, that we have to consider that the national government should develop a sustainable straw management or crop residue management practices, and there should be a very specific guideline for farmers to implement on the ground. And the government has to provide some incentives in terms of fiscal and administrative incentives to promote the green activities in this particular area. And we also know that there are some areas where the crop residue can be used for electricity generation, rice husk can be used, and in that case, we have to consider using the efficient boilers for mitigating the emission, for reducing the emission to a greater extent. And there are other tools that we have also considered and think of, like I can mention one important area that we can use straw-based material for mushroom cultivation. So there are some innovative ideas already being practiced by the farmers, and we need to actually improve them, and we need to upscale across the country for getting the better benefit. And we understand that we have actually seeking for multiple co-benefits, health benefits, climate change benefits, and other sustainable development benefits. So in doing so, we can actually achieve those multiple co-benefits, particularly the health benefits and climate change benefits to a considerable extent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Haque. That's actually a very comprehensive answer, and you already have specified the measures that you would like to scale up in order to address this issue. So just wondering, Ms. Jamshaid, what about in Pakistan? Are there similar efforts or good practices that you would like to scale up? Or hearing from the other speakers today, are there other good practices that you think can also be applied in your country?
Yes, thank you. I think Mr. Haque has actually given us a lot of ideas for the initiatives which they are doing in their country and can be implemented in Pakistan. So again, what we discussed before as well, and what Takashi also said, that there need to be a knowledge exchange between countries, and these kind of events and these kind of exchanges give you a lot of new ideas and things which can be implemented. And it's better if we are in the similar kind of a landscape in the similar region. This makes more sense to us. So I can, like, what the initiatives by Mr. Haque was also something which can be taken forward in Pakistan. And then the initiative of the crop burning, the ban on crop burning, I feel like that can be scaled up in a way that we can improve the enforcement and the compliance of that, so that farmers are aware that they will be fined if they do this. And by doing this, the thing which I felt that at the time we did that was that we didn't have any alternative to that. So that's the reason it was not enforced properly. So if you're putting a ban, then equally we need to invest in identifying alternatives for the farmers. And if you have to incentivize them, some kind of benefit to them by doing this. is another way of looking at it. So I think that's one area which can be taken forward. A government initiative of, those 500 rice farmers were given machinery to eliminate the need to burn crop that can be expanded to all the farmers if done correctly. And those technologies can be developed in Pakistan more to keep the affordability of the farmers in mind, so that they are more encouraged to take buy those machineries. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jamshaid. Definitely the idea of inclusivity and not leaving them behind, since they are going to be also affected by these changes in the policies. Thank you very much for sharing your insights on this. I'd also like to take this opportunity, perhaps Director Haque and Ms. Jamshaid, if you have questions for Dr. Takashi.
In fact, I have just one important point that I would like to raise here. Already, it has been raised by Dr. Supat and Takashi as well, that how we can tap the opportunity in terms of getting some carbon credit to different innovative ideas, since we are actually working on operationalizing the Article 6 mechanism under the Paris Agreement. So how we can get benefit out of the activities that has been going on under the climate change process and outside the climate change process. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Haque. Truly, that's a very important point, a thought to ponder for everyone who attended here, and also for us for future work. Just also checking, Ms. Jamshaid, maybe you have questions for Dr. Takashi?
No, rather than a question, I have some reflection over what Mr. Haque has said, and I again, I agree with you, sir, that the carbon market can play a very significant role. I was looking at a recent project done by Ghana on carbon market, where Switzerland is, investing in their rice farming, and they have generated credits, and the first round of credit has been done. So this is another way, as I was mentioning before, that we need to incentivize if we want something to go forward. Then farmers, if they see that they can, the credits can be generated, and which those revenue generation can be reinvested in the same sector or support the farmers, it's more sustainable in future, not just one-time grant and you do this and then there is no sustainability after that. So that's at the end of the day, you need those kind of incentives and initiatives which are sustainable. So carbon market, I think, remains one of the biggest for Pakistan as well. And it will be good to hear from our colleagues that what opportunities do we have, because Pakistan is also exploring that area, and we are in the process of developing our registry as well. We currently we're focusing more on the private sector, because agriculture is more like it's more of a voluntary kind of a basis, where if whoever wants to be a part of it, because we don't want to put them in more disadvantage. But yeah, it will be good to hear about this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jamshaid. There are so many ideas for next learning sessions and sharing of community of practice. Thank you to our panelists again, Dr. Takashi Takahatake, Director Haque, and Ms. Jamshaid. Thank you so much for your time. And all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Truly, this has been an enlightening and productive discussion. It has been a wonderful webinar, and we would like to thank all our speakers for sharing their time and expertise for this event, as well as our participants who have been very active in the Q&A box. To formally close the event, we call on Ms. Karma Yangzom, Principal Environment Specialist in the Safeguards Review Division in the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department of ADB, for her closing remarks.
Thank you, Ever. And thank you to all our speakers for this excellent session. It's been a bit of a crash course for me, I must say, over the 3 hours, but I've learned so much. And I think it was good that we had this session. So like I kind of have a clearer picture in my head, like what is the problem, what is the scale, where are we, and what are the solutions? What I like, the key takeaways that I got from all the presentation and the discussion points is that at the end of the day, this is not just an environmental problem, it is an economic problem, it is a health problem, and this practice of agricultural waste burning is not going anywhere, it's increasing. And in fact, Dr. Supat said that just last month they had this, this high levels of PM 2.5 in Thailand and the Greater Mekong area. So this is a challenge which is here to stay. And therefore, we need to find solutions more than finding, I think, implementing the solutions. And in terms of the finding, I think we already have heard from all our speakers the different, kinds of solutions that are there. And it's a matter of trying to apply it within each country, and trying to fit it within the local context. And most important that I understood is that, the farmers have a key role to play, since they are the ones that are burning. And we understood that the reason why this practice of burning is because of more intensive, cropping, more commercial cropping. There's a need to produce more and more. So there is a narrower gap between two crops. So then the easiest solution for the farmer is, of course, to quickly burn the crop. So there is that aspect. And then there is also the issue of the belief and the mindset, where in some of the countries, the farmers actually believe that, burning the crop is good for the soil, is better, it will help to kill all the pests. But actually, in reality, it's even killing the good pests, well, not good pests, but the good sort of ingredients in the soil. So there are a lot of, good and bad kind of insects in the soil. So it kills everything. And by reusing the crop residue, it can actually improve the fertility of the soil. There is better retainment of moisture, so less need for water. So there is a need of this awareness raising and mindset change. But at the same time, there is also a need for providing like quick solutions. And as Hadika had, given this recommendation for having maybe storage facilities for the straw, which is harvested, all the rice after it's harvested. So there are so many different solutions, and the farmer is a key player, but there are many other stakeholders which have a role to play. Of course, government most important in setting up the policies and trying to enforce the policies. Then there are the NGOs, in terms of bringing knowledge, and also the private sector, because a lot of this has also got to do with, the business community. And I really like the presentation from Dr. Supat, where he showed there is the rice straw, and then there is all the different ways in which it could be used, and then trying to map at how to arrive from the rice straw to all the different uses. And then he put in like this box with the private, like a business setup. So I think that's the kind of exercise that we need to do for every within the local context of every country, and even within each country, perhaps within every state, we would need to see like what are the steps that would be suitable in that specific local context. So there is this awareness raising, mindset change, and then a big part we all learned was the incentivizing, got to do with the incentives and disincentives, and then making it work as an economic benefit for the farmer. So there is also that aspect, and trying to, kind of show that it's actually an economic loss to the farmer if they're just burning the straw, that eventually it's lost. And there is all this kind of potential income that they could gain had they not done that. So there is also that aspect. And then I think the knowledge sharing aspect, which we talked a lot about, and it's much easier for a farmer to follow a practice, if he sees it with his own eyes, if he sees his next door neighbor, doing something which is working, then of course the likelihood for this farmer, picking up that practice is much more. And I think even across countries, so perhaps trying to have some, capacity building, and then trying to also have like study tours or something like that for the farmers to exchange ideas and see things that are working across different countries. And also this excellent example that Hadika gave about the carbon credit, and how it's working in this country in Africa, and how things like that, which could be learned and somehow adopted, particularly in the South Asia region. And one big potential, from listening to all of this, was the potential to use the agricultural crop residue as biogas and generating, cleaner energy. Because there is also this big shift, as we all know, trying to, accelerate generation of clean energy and trying to move away from fossil fuels. So this is an opportunity for, scaling up this initiative. And when it comes to scaling up, as Mr. Ziaul Haque has said, there are so many already, ongoing practices. And he gave these examples in Bangladesh, where some of the farmers are already they already realize that the residue is good for the soil, and they are not burning it. So there is a need to scale up this activity. So I see that in some cases, it's a matter of fitting in the solution in the right place that fits in the local context. But in some cases, it's already happening. It's a matter of scaling it up. And it's great, from the great information that we learned from Dr. Takashi, that there's all this good initiatives that ESCAP is doing together with this study across the South Asian countries. And they already have this initiative with the agricultural machinery, and trying to establish this fund for more R&D. So, ADB will also be like very keen and interested, to stay, to follow the progress that is being made by ESCAP on this and look for opportunities to work together. Because air quality improvement, as mentioned by Qingfeng in the opening remarks, is that we have this new program called the Asia Clean Blue Skies program, where we are trying to scale up investments of ADB, in improving air quality. And of course, one of the target sectors is the agricultural sector. So we would really like to look for opportunities to partner with organizations such as ESCAP, as well as other government organizations. We have Pakistan here, and we have Bangladesh here, but even other national governments and other think tanks, NGOs. We are looking to partner, and then try to provide support through our technical assistance projects, and possibly even investment projects, in order to find the solutions, basically the box that Dr. Supat had in the box in the middle, how to arrive from the crop residue, to the solution. So I hope we can, find opportunities. And as Noor had mentioned, we've been talking a lot about this. So I think the most important thing is trying to convert it into action. So we really look forward to continuing this dialogue and looking to accelerate, conversion of these discussions into actual actions on ground. So with that, I would really like to thank Ever for your great moderation, and a big thank you to Clean Air Asia for putting this webinar together. And to all our speakers and panelists, thank you very much. It was very, very informative. I think we have seen that there are so many solutions. It's just a matter of fitting the right solution in the right place, in the right manner. So with that, I would like to thank everybody. Thank you, Noor, for your great opening speech. It was wonderful to hear, your personal story, and how you kind of linked it to the problem. So we hope that we can change, within your lifetime, change the story back into a positive one. And I would like to thank all the participants that have stuck around. This is a 3-hour webinar, so it's quite long. And I would really like to thank all the participants for staying with us right until now. So I hand over back to you, Ever.
Thank you so much, Karma, for that closing. Actually, in relation to what Karma has said, and ultimately the time is just really not enough for all the discussions. A month from now, we're already planning for the next knowledge sharing event. This is under the Asia Clean Blue Skies program, where we will zero in on technologies and incentives to reduce emissions from agriculture. So from the information that you have shared in the registration for this event, expect that we will also let you know of developments on this. And of course, we would also appreciate that when we send you the thank you email for attending the event, if you could kindly answer the post-event survey so that we would know how to better organize such similar events. And at the end of the survey, you would find the link to all the presentations of this event. So once again, thank you so much for attending. Have a good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.